Hello and welcome to the realm of inspiration, Inspired Awakening. Today's guest on Inspired Awakening is Skye Chen, and we're going to talk about his awakening and hopefully it'll inspire you to further your awakening journey. Hi, Skye. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, my name is Skye Chen. I'm a dude. I'm wearing black today. I do healings and I'm a natural born psychic medium. And I've been through quite a crazy journey with health and awakening. It's still ongoing. And so I'm sure we're going to have like lots of juicy stuff to talk about today.
So, the first question is, how did you awaken? What was that experience like? How old were you? Like, was it like a big flash or did it kind of happen gradually?
So as soon as you start saying that, my guides kind of want me to explain that I'm still awakening. And I think a lot of us are too, because it's easy for us to kind of get into this paradigm of like, I'm good, I'm not, black and white, like it's yes or it's no kind of thing. Because for me, my health is kind of at the core of what's initiated a lot of it. And especially where I'm at, and even to this day, I have a lot of impatience with it. That's just currently where I'm at right now in my life. And I know that's going to change, but it's like something that's rarely talked about a lot, I guess, because one, a lot of people, when they talk to me about the chronic illness, just like in my everyday life, whenever it comes up, um, people are like, oh, you're so strong. You're resilient. And that must be so enlightening and inspiring and awakening. And it is. But the dark side of it too is it's like for me, I speak for myself. I get frustrated a lot of the times. And um, I'm hearing the quote, every master knows that there are no masters, that we're all students. And the master role, the student role are just transient experiences that come and go. And you never know, or unless you do, but you never know when someone has something to teach you or when there's a learning opportunity. Um, it kind of also goes into the phrase of every curse is a blessing and every blessing is a curse, which comes up all the time when I work with people. And it comes up for myself all the time too. So it's like seeing how in the moment or in the small moments of what we're focused on and what we want to know, there's always a bigger picture to it. And you never know later on, you might be looking back and being like, wow, this was really an amazing blessing. I didn't see things, I didn't feel things, I didn't understand things the way that I do now because of the journey that brought me there. With my healing, it kind of started with back in the day. This was like 10, 11 years ago. I was living abroad in Taiwan and I was living a very different lifestyle than I am now. I was an English teacher. I'm certified by Oxford International to teach English. And I went over there with all of these plans, like everything was set for me. So, all throughout my life, I've had this kind of tendency or this familial backdrop of control and people in my family having control issues, myself included. And so we like to have everything tight under our grip, kind of a way to approach life. And so I had worked my butt off to get a full ride scholarship with this university that I was accepted to for grad school. And for my undergrad, I have a degree in international relations. So we study a lot of like global things, global topics, politics, economics, culture, exchanges like that. And by the time I got there, I kind of like bombarded myself into this new life. Like I threw myself in and I had lots of shock, like not only to my mental state, but also to my physical state, because I was eating street food And I was like all of a sudden just commuting on foot hours a day from, whereas before that I was kind of mostly sedentary. So there was like a lot of shocks to my system. I lost like it was 10 or 15 pounds in 2 weeks just from sweating and from the stress. And anyway, what ended up happening is I developed a couple ulcers, and that was my first like bout with health, but I just tried to suppress it, going to different doctors and healers and whatnot, and doing the traditional kind of, or I should say conventional medicine, where you get thrown a pill and they're like, here you go, hope for the best kind of thing. And so that was really just masking that issue. And as time went on, it developed more symptoms, and I had more affliction to the point where I was seeing a lot of doctors just because of my ulcers, that I was missing class. And when I missed class, I lost my scholarship. And that's ultimately why I started teaching English. So I ended up teaching English after I went there to go to grad school. But when I dropped out of school, I started teaching English, and that was very rewarding. It was very fun and natural for me to kind of connect with people in that way. And looking back on it now, there is a part of me that's always going to be like that teacher, that learner, because I like connecting with people in very deep and meaningful ways. Like my mother has always told me throughout my childhood. She meant it in an insulting way, but I see it now as like a reinforcement, or like an affirmation of what I can appreciate about myself. She would always tell me, she's like, you're so deep. Why does everything have to be so complicated? And so like, why do you have to look there? Why can't you just let it go and be happy, kind of a thing? And so on my journey, I kept getting sicker and sicker until about, I think it's 2013, when I came back from a trip to Japan. And this was around the time of Chinese New Year. So over there in Asia, Chinese New Year is kind of like Asian Christmas. And so everybody gets off work, they go and see their families, they travel around all over the place. And I came back for my first day of work. I went downtown to go meet up with my then girlfriend. I told her, wait for me here. She was in a Starbucks. I was really hungry, and I was going to go get some food at McDonald's. So, and at that time, I partied a lot, I drank a lot, I smoked cigarettes like a chimney constantly. So I lit up a cig, I smoked and walked down to the crosswalk, got into McDonald's. There was a line, and I was waiting. And as soon as I came up to order, when it was my turn, I had a heart attack, and it landed right then and there. And I'll never forget this, because I literally thought, and I knew in that moment I was going to die. I knew that, and so I'd never really met that much instant dread and anxiety and fear, I guess, all swell up within a matter of milliseconds. Like, it was instantaneous. And I clutched my chest, and I was just like, oh my God, am I going to die here? And I felt my heart, and it was beating really crazy, like irregularly. It was going like boom, 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 like that. I called out to the universe at that time. I was an atheist, which is kind of funny. So it was like, if there is a God, please help me. And I was just calling out to existence. And it was still going on. And I wanted to find a bathroom to kind of just like splash cold water in my face, kind of like help me out. And it was upstairs. So I had to very, very gingerly, like step by step, crawl up the stairs as I'm having a heart attack, which is like, oh my God. Splashed water on my face, came back down. I started feeling numb and tingly in my fingers. And I had to walk back across the street and go to the Starbucks where my ex was at. And I was telling her, I'm having a heart attack. Please help. And thank God, and by coincidence, right, there was a hospital right next to that. And we got into the hospital. I ended up falling asleep, actually, because we were waiting for like a couple hours. to get in. There was this really funny, quirky, he was really, really kind though. There was this old doctor who wore like traditional Chinese clothing, like the jipao. And he was like 90 some years old, the nurses were telling me. And the reason that he still worked there is because he owned the hospital and nobody could tell him, hey, buddy, like you're 95, 96, you should probably retire. Like you've done well. Like, thank you so much. But he was just so passionate. He kind of had that vibe of like, I'm going to retire when I'm dead. Like, I'm going to keep healing to the very last breath in my soul. So that started the journey. And as time went on, I started realizing, this is a long-term thing. This isn't going away. They're not really understanding what's going on. It ended up being autoimmune disease. And then it basically took me 8 years later, while I was in the United States, having done years and years of research and going to this doctor, going to this healer, trying this diet out, doing this lifestyle thing, like relentlessly. And I just poured all of my focus and gumption and oorah into finding a solution. And it broke me down to the extent that I didn't find that solution. And it brought me into the spiritual, emotional, psychological aspect of the journey, which is honestly, I think it's the bigger portion of it, because it's really easy to kind of focus on the physiological and to be like, I'm feeling this way. Let's just fix it, kind of an idea. And I'm still kind of in this space where I'm healing the somatic aspects to myself. I was just talking with a somatic healer yesterday to kind of set up something, and to seek within the body and to release the trauma, the energy that is non-physical, but it's held within the emotional body, but it does absolutely affect the physical portion, the physical body, the mental body as well. And it's layered. So just when you think that like I'm done, I'm fixed or whatever, there's more to unearth. There's more to look at. That's been my experience. And it's really been reorienting me. And I think it's had an amazing impact, for one, initiating me back to a lot of my abilities that I had kind of like kept from myself to cope, to function in like an everyday average society, just to get by and to mask myself, kind of hide away, because I've always stuck out everywhere I go. And I've learned some adaptive behaviors to kind of like be a wallflower or blend in, which is not actually what I'm here for, or what my calling is, or what I feel aligned to. Whenever I catch myself doing that, like playing it small, so to speak, I've noticed that it prevents that situation from unfolding or blossoming into what it was meant to be, not just for myself, but for the other people that I'm interacting with too. And so as I've practiced over and over and over and, made mistakes, felt the bumps along the road, I've been able to tap in to deeper aspects of myself and others, and to help initiate that with people too. Like you've seen, because we do events, like when I do the healing that I do, that's what that is. It's me going into a zone where I just listen, I follow, I adapt, I become, and I'm not strategizing anything. I'm not like consciously thinking some like structure of like, do this first, then do that, then do that. There's nothing like that. It just flows through me, and I'm like the tool. I'm the catalyst for it, as life and others have been the catalyst for me as well. So it's kind of a dance in that way.
Nice. Yeah. It looks like a dance when we met at holistic fairs, and the first thing that was very noticeable about your healing methods and helping people, it does look like a dance. It looks like a Greek dance. You know, he's dancing all over, and you can tell that there is like something you're seeing that we're not seeing. There's something that like you're being a channel for. Speaking as someone who does channel, and I've channeled and I've done some work with ley lines, I know that when you tune into that zone, there's things you see that nobody else sees. So from the outside, it looks like you're kind of dancing all over the place. I think it's interesting you mentioned like the trapped energy and the emotional and mental bodies, because the healer domain of the Alphean realm is like loudly saying, yes, that's like a huge aspect of the healer frequency is teaching people how to heal that the mental trauma that manifests physically, the emotional trauma that manifests physically. So what I want to ask is, with your healing methods, like how did you learn how to do them? And then do you do them with the intention of helping people heal those like trapped energies? Or are you working on healing them more energetically, physically, or do you have no idea? You're just kind of channeling.
That's a juicy, juicy question. There's a lot to say here. So about how I learned about it, or I should say like relearned my ability. Ever since I was a kid, I would always have how would you call it? This inspiration to tap in. Like I was just noticing this the other day, just without even thinking about it, without being aware of it. I was actually moving parts of Kundalini energy from the base of my spine up and down and up and down. And I can do it at whim.
Oh,
Like if I focus on it, you can like, I think an aspect of it is owning that and not getting in and not letting yourself get in the way of yourself. And because a lot of times with our working brains and our minds and our intellects in the modern era, we overthink so much and we try to process and figure stuff out. But in doing so, that can abruptly get in the way of the process as it's unfolding. Because at a lot of these healing events where I'm doing in-person stuff, an individual will ask for a healing and then a reading right after, which is awesome because then we're more open and receiving naturally to who we are to get that information without over processing it. But I will get so much information coming through. Like I will see stuff. I'll literally see shapes and lines and stuff that I have to trace. Like not just with my physical body, but with where my astral body essentially is going and doing, because I do the healing for myself also. And when I do that, I sit just like everyone else sits when they're receiving a healing from me. You have to sit and have at least some of your body grounded to something, like your feet on the ground or sitting on the floor, and then with your hands resting on your lap with your palms up to receive. So when I do that for myself, I sit down and then I astral project myself out, and then I'm working on me. And so there's two versions of me, but they're still connected. So it's like I still can do that. And so I get visuals, I hear things, I feel things like a lot all at once. Like there's layers upon layers upon layers of things. And so many times I've been in those situations where I'm like, come on, spirit, help me remember this. This is really, really good. This is going to be very helpful for this person or for myself. And then when I kind of like get to the end of the healing, when we know that it's done, it all just like melts away immediately in the same way. Like if we have a really vivid dream and we wake up and in seconds, you can already see that dream melting away from us.
yeah.
I think a lot of us have been there, especially when we're astral projecting, when we're in that astral realm, when a part of us, a part of our bodies, one of the bodies we occupy, comes out and it goes and it explores in that plane of existence. We don't have that working mind detached in the same way. And so I think it's like a bit of like a language lost in translation kind of thing. Because when we come to and then our working brains start up, our working brains need like A, B, C, X, Y, Z to be able to function in that way and to recall and to visualize and do all of that stuff. But then when we're like purely in that realm coming through, it's kind of like taking Chinese and like trying to force it through to become English like
Oh.
instantaneously.
It's like very foreign to the physical reality, but it's not foreign to the soul. I know when I hear a lot of the times when I'm hearing like the Elfian realm, I hear their unique language and it's like translating to English, or when they're speaking their language, but when it comes out of my body, it's English. And so
Mm.
sometimes their words sound a little weird, or things look a little weird, or they're searching for a way to explain it in a way we understand. So I think with channeling in every aspect, it's definitely hard. English is not the easiest language to translate healing into.
I would love to receive a healing from you where you don't translate nothing, where you just come through and you're like, "Balafalaj shalaferde mokuta salanti." And it's just like,
just
ooh.
just like elfin language doesn't make any like there's a specific phrase and I have no idea how to pronounce it, but I have it written down, where it's like it translates to like "you're welcome, my dear," and every time they conclude a session they say it, but they don't say it out loud to the people. They'll say it quietly, like in the inner, where I
Oh,
can hear it but the people can't hear it. And it's very interesting. I don't know if you experienced that with like when you were doing readings for people, if there's certain things that are said to you that you don't know how to express to the person you're reading from.
oh yeah. And it's been my big thing. I try, sometimes I overstep my own boundaries doing this actually. Um, where I try to deliver the message as succinctly as possible. And another thing I want to talk about too is like in the beginning when I was really putting myself out there and going to shows and trying to do it professionally, you know,
Mhm.
um, I would come into that conundrum where I was trying my absolute best, doing 150% to deliver the message in a way that that person can digest it. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize it. I was pulling myself like taffy to try and guarantee that that receiving end was going to receive it the same way as me, and
Mhm.
overstepping my boundary, overstepping their boundary. So that's how you can very easily get drained. For anybody listening that's empathic yourself and that you do readings for other people like that, that's a big, big thing that we often overlook, is like how much we deplete ourselves. And when, because we've all had those situations where we're trying to like engage with people and interact with them, and we just get so tired and drained. And it's a very unique type of fatigue that I feel. It doesn't feel like any other kind of fatigue. It's kind of like your bones are tired.
Oh,
That's how it
I've
feels.
definitely experienced that. There's something with, for me it's like sound frequency. So if I'm in a space where there's a lot of music playing all the time, constantly, no break of music, like with like my kind of little part-time job in the human world for the time being, when there's music playing all the time for like the 3 hours I'm in there, like once every 5 days, I feel like I can't function. I get out to my car and I'm like, I just need to lay on the ground. Like everything inside of me, my head, everything, I have to spend like a detox time. It's like
Mm.
noise that like makes kind of like your bones scratch like nails on a chalkboard.
I feel the exact same way about noise pollution, and it's rampant everywhere, especially in stores, like big
Oh yeah.
stores.
Oh yeah.
It literally takes me like 5 to 10 minutes before I can't even think anymore. Like I just feel like mush and mud is in my head
It's
when there's
purposeful though.
oh, what was that? Sorry.
They do it on purpose though. That's
I
what it
bet they do. Yeah, because then it gets you into that state where you're like, I'm a mindless consumer. I just take, like, you become reactive like an animal without that overlay.
mm-hmm.
Because like for me, I even hear light, like fluorescent light bulbs as like that stuff drives me nuts. It drives me bonkers. And the charger, like I was telling you, I was looking for my charger this morning. Maybe it needs to be lost because that thing is from China. And as soon as you plug it in, you can audibly hear it going bzzz, like that. And the closer you get to it, it has this particular kind of sick ick feeling that only comes from electromagnetic frequency. Do you
Oh,
get that also? Like from
yeah.
Bluetooth devices and stuff? I cannot use stuff like that long term. I feel really, really icky with it.
That's how I feel with I have AirPods and I'll use it when working out, but every now and again they'll just crash. And I have to take them out. And when I take them out, my head feels so much better. And I'm listening to like affirmations, I'm listening to things that like are helping me. It's not that the noise itself is the issue, it's the
Yeah,
device that's the issue. Yes.
absolutely. You know, there's scientific papers on this too. This isn't just what we can sense, but we can also empirically measure this. There is a book, The Invisible Rainbow. This guy, this Lone Ranger, in the, I believe, like the 80s or 90s, he started to really collect his research and write his books down and stuff. When nobody else was talking about this, he was, because as like he went to medical college, but he also researches a lot about technology and infrastructure. And he noted that all these huge spikes in like health related pandemics and when certain types of diseases are now becoming prevalent in the everyday population, that it correlates with a new kind of technology, just like boom, like laid out in the infrastructure. Now it's wide scale, widespread. For example, when the telegraph poles were first laid down in the countryside, people don't realize this, but the incident rate of essentially like panic disorder or anxiety like skyrocketed, but only in one demographic. It was with women because they stayed at the location while their men went off to go work.
Oh, interesting.
And the prevalence was a lot higher. The frequency was a lot worse, and the symptoms were a lot more severe with the people who were closer to these poles and these lines. And then the exact same thing happened, or about the same thing happened with telephone lines when they were laid out. Then diabetes started to become a lot more prevalent. And
Interesting.
so, yeah, and he goes into detail on very specific diseases and technologies that are associated. And then nowadays, with 5G networks being
Oh,
laid out, that, you know, Spirit has told me this in little bits and pieces here and there throughout the past, I want to say like 5, 6 years, as they've been pushing so hard for the 5G technology. A lot of the hysteria, a lot of the unraveling that's been going on in people's psyches and hearts and minds and bodies, a lot of just the general craziness of the world, I think is being initiated by a lot of this technology. I'm not going to say necessarily that it's the sole thing that's affecting people, because the ankle bone's connected to the knee bone, you know,
yeah,
with the
yeah.
spiritual body, the emotional body, the physical body. But in the greater sense of things, Spirit is also reminding us that even the calamities which befall us, even the crap that we have to trudge through, it has a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It has a divinity to itself, because had I not gotten sick in the ways that I have and ran into a brick wall because my life was being lived 180 degrees opposite to my truth, then I would have been continuing on with that blind journey, with what I thought life was about, what I thought I should be and do, and that whole rat race stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So our tragedies are our saving graces.
Oh, yeah.
But what often the only thing that distinguishes a gift from a curse is time and experience and perspective.
Very
Because
true.
you look back at stuff, and then when we arrive to the point where we're like, I appreciate this happening to me in my life, and I wouldn't have wanted it to go any other way. That's when we know we've arrived to a step,
Yeah.
right, on the journey. I'm not saying I'm there myself necessarily with this and that. I've definitely got things that I'm still learning and still growing on. But it's important to have that compassion for ourselves and other people, uh, to realize that we are perfectly imperfect, and that's a huge reason why we're here to begin with. Because if we come here and everything's set, all things are dandy and we're okay, like it's boring. There's nothing going on. There's no trek to be made.
I did find the title. So the book, The Invisible Rainbow, A History of Electricity and Life by Arthur Furstenberg. I will put a link in the description so you can check that out.
He's got some amazing talks and podcasts all over the place, like on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google, all over that you can find. It's really fascinating stuff. And there's quite a few people out there who on their journey where they're at right now, it's going to really help and I think click and make sense to you and provide you a point to start your own journey at or to look into, dive into. Obviously, it's not just going to entail the physical with your journey. There's going to be mental aspects to it, emotional aspects to it. A great amount of discomfort typically always accompanies healing, right? I mean,
Yes.
I haven't met anybody who's like, yeah, I've awakened and it's so cozy, it's so comfortable. I've got my margarita, I've got my feet laid back on the sofa. It's never like that. It like drags you through the mud.
It definitely does. I think about I at the beginning of my awakening journey, I think it was about a year in, I was attending a conference. There's a speaker. Shout out to DeMarco Fombi. He was discussing kind of the metaphor of an apple and a seed and how growth is uncomfortable. And I was at that phase in my awakening where it had been like a little bit over a year. So I was here and I was feeling very like in a rut because I was going through dark night of the soul. I was experiencing it. And when he said that like those uncomfortable moments are the moments that happen right before you burst through like the ground and blossom up into a beautiful tree. And that way you can start helping others. I wanted to jump to helping others before I had fully blossomed myself. So when he said that, my entire soul that resonated, those shivers and chills you feel when someone says something that like your soul, it's resonating inside of you. That was the most powerful thing I heard. And from that moment on, like I kept accepting the kind of dark moments because you need them before you can blossom. So I like that metaphor, and I think it really works with us as humanity because we are the children of the tree of life. That's how a lot of other higher beings see us. They see us as a tree. They see like the veins in our arms. We are connected to trees and nature and all of that. So we are seeds. Literally, a lot of us are star seeds. Like there is a lot of like the seed metaphor really works well with all of us.
The past year, and you've seen it too, I've been running around like a headless chicken.
Oh, yes.
I had literally like 1 month off and everything else was just go because I really felt so compelled to connect with people in this way and to offer this work. And this is the first job in my life where nobody's got to hold a flame to my feet to do anything. And I'm naturally compelled to do it. And I will like work myself to the ground. I never understood workaholics until last year. Because if you're really passionate about something, you go for it. But at the same time, Spirit has been showing me like rein it back. And I've had some very dark nights, plural, of the soul this year as well. And like what you say, to embrace that, to not necessarily feed it, but to listen to it, to acknowledge it, and to bravely step 1 foot at a time through that darkness, through the pain. It's absolutely necessary to get to the other side. That's part of it. You can't have the light without the dark. And so I think a lot of the popular culture notions with love and light and modern day new age spirituality really glosses over that and tries to bypass that. And we kind of like naughty poo poo on darkness and shadow work.
Yes.
But it's there, and it's been a significant part of human existence. And this planet in particular, there's some aspect of Earth having this thicket of a maze to navigate as part of the initiation, so to speak.
Definitely. I'd say that what the elves call it, they say it's because we're breaking cycles. So the most important thing I learned from them is that to break cycles, you have to kind of go back into the past, go back into the darkness and heal it. What the earth is doing because of like falls of higher conscious versions of the earth, we're in a cycle of like breaking free from the experimentation, re-establishing our free will. We are breaking those cycles now for earth and the collective all. So that is definitely very dominantly heavy, and part of it is the neglecting of the work. Like there is so much work that we need to do, and there is almost like the elves call them the frozen awoken, where they saw the light a little bit and then they start encouraging this one side of it, but there isn't balance. They're missing the balance. They're missing the other half. They're forcing too much one thing as opposed to the other, and there isn't the bigger pictures missing. It's
Mm-hmm.
just missing. They're just enforcing the one thing that they learned and making it their whole reason for sharing their voice without learning other things. There are different phases of the awakening. But there's
Mm-hmm.
definitely so much depth to it.
Beautifully articulated. You said that very well. Um,
Thank
and
you.
I want to add to that that even those of us who are attracted to people and energies like that, let it be. Oftentimes it's part of the journey. So in duality, there's yes and no, right and wrong, and there's nothing right or wrong about that. It's kind of funny to say, but it's very meta. But uh, when you get to a certain place, there's this oneness where there is no distinction, and the inclusiveness is what we're tapping into. And on that note, I want to say specifically, a lot of us that are trying to work with healers, or we're drawn to certain light workers or certain people who may be exhibiting some of those faces.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's our path, or that's what we're choosing. That's how we are meant to learn through the shadow, because through these light workers and healers and readers and everybody these days, there is a lot of much more than what meets the eye, we'll say. Because I don't want to like poo-poo on them or anything,
Mhm.
because within the greater expanse of things, they're serving a purpose, even if they're not realizing it necessarily. You can still heal being asleep.
Yeah.
You can still be an instrument to it, but um Spirit wants to mention too, like a lot of us get wrapped up in the ego aspect of it too, which isn't necessarily wrong or right, but it's very it is limiting, but it's like it's a step. A lot of times those of us who are drawn to those events, without realizing it, we're kind of looking for that quick fix. We're looking for that sugar pill, or we're looking for that instant connection or the instant awakening. And a lot of times certain experiences can feel like that, and they can be a part of that. But in those moments, we haven't traversed that yet to see the whole extent of that map. We're just looking at one little part of the map, and that's perfectly fine. We have to value every step that we take, that it's not always a straight line kind of thing. And sometimes what we think is happening, there's actually something much different going on, or more expansive to see or to learn about or to feel or blossom into, that uh we had no initial understanding of. We
Yeah,
have no.
I definitely agree. I think when it comes to like your full awakening, that's something that happens like within you. And
Mm,
just what I've learned from the elves, it's just other people inspire it. Like for me, it was my mom watching her go through her awakening inspired me. But when I made that choice to fully embrace the path, that was my own, that was in my own safe space. So I think like these events are starting to become like launching pads for it. But it's not like
mhm,
the initial thing that does it. It depends on the person, but for my experience, like the goal is to start the inspiration. That's why the elves are always like, may the petals of the flower of inspiration lead you back to your soul's purpose, lead you back to your soul's mission, lead you back to your inspired spark. Take what petals have given you in this moment and keep working at it. I know that's something that my mom, when she works with clients, and she'll say, like, you have to do other work. You can't just come and do a healing once every 2 weeks and everything's going to be okay. Like, there is more things you need to do by yourself. So the quick fix thing, I think a lot of people look for the quick fix and then want to jump into the awakening because it's human nature to want to help people. But there's so much inner work that needs to be done. There's so much like cleansing. I know I was attending a webinar event with Kyle Gray, and he was comparing skincare to cleansing. And he was like, you gotta exfoliate, you gotta scrub it clean and then moisturize and with protections and things like that. But it also applies to your awakening. Like, you gotta clean, you gotta go inside with like an exfoliating brush and clean it all away, cut the cords, do it all, do all what you gotta do. And once you've done that, then you can slowly start moving through. I think a lot of people want to jump to, it's almost like it's becoming a trend to be a channeler, to be a medium, to be a healer. So they want to jump to it, but don't go through the lectures and learnings, don't go through all the processes that a lot more experienced healers and mediums have gone through in the past. They're just jumping through, almost like a ego show, which is definitely a whole other conversation that we could jump into in
Oh
another time,
yeah.
because that's the ego show. As we evolve as souls, our ego is going with us, because until we fully separate from the negative polarity as an earth, which it's going to take a while, the ego is going on the negative polarities dimensional version of like the polar opposite. There's the fifth dimensional positive polarity. There's also the fifth dimensional negative polarity, which people don't realize that it's the continuing struggle. So you want to reach the fifth dimension, but which side of the polarity are you really on? And it's growing past that, because the elves say it's not until like we're really up there in like double digits dimensions will the negative polarity fully lose grip of our earth. Like, it's gonna take time, and people want the quick fix, people want the quick results, and it's that urgency is the ego, and they don't realize that urgency comes from the ego, not the soul.
Ego is just creating a sentence within a language to make things make sense. It's like the software to hardware system. It's like
it serves its purpose.
Yeah.
Yes, its purpose is for us to overcome it and step into it. Like, it's serving its purpose, and every day is that challenge, and it's doing its job. And when you accept that it's doing its job, it is that accepting factor. I know I met someone at a fair, and he was talking about that it's serving its purpose. All these negative people, all the people they're serving their purpose, they're serving their role in this play. Like Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage and we are merely players. And that's in our own mind as well. Everything is serving its purpose. Even if we don't like it, it's doing its job. I don't know if you've experienced that as well, like realizing and accepting that. You
all the
mentioned
time.
it. Yeah.
All the freaking time in my whole life, basically. A lot of negativity. There's been a lot of positivity too, but being so sensitive to it, and that remnant of the monkey mind that's there to naturally focus on the negative and be like, okay, the positives here is down pat, but if we focus on the negative, then we can like improve. It's kind of a relic of the past age of the masculine, because that's what was needed, right? Because we needed to structure, to organize.
And I've experienced, like, I had friends who I thought were like-minded like me, but their spirituality was performative. Their spirituality was, let me fit into this new religion, let me fit into this trend, not, I am doing it for my soul. It's like the ego is now using spirituality as its playground to like further keep you from understanding your truth. It's like, are your motives you want to awaken, or are you just wanting to fit a trend so you're not FOMOing? Like, how do I know that you're really wanting the help and you're really wanting to evolve, or are you just trying to fit into this new identity? I can feel the people who authentically, because they'll keep coming back. The people who authentically are wanting to grow and learn, they'll keep coming back, they'll keep talking to you. The people who are just wanting to like dip their toe in the water, I know that we experience that at fairs, that there are people who will come and talk at, your booth for hours and hours, just dipping their toe in the water, but not sure if they want to jump in. Those ones typically never come back.
I had a recent experience. I won't name names or anything. But I had a private client who reached out to me in such desperation. And we didn't even talk about this during her session, but she's in a very abusive relationship, the typical kind of narcissist empath kind of dynamic where neither will leave each other because of the toxic traits that they allow each other to have. But she's had negative entities, she's had demons following her and doing things and screwing with her, like actually knocking things off the counter and opening cabinets. And like when we were doing a healing session on her, it came right up and it was trying to distract her with everything. And so, but we got through it, right? We got through the whole session. And couple days after that, she followed through a little bit here and there. She was telling me about this and that, but eventually she blocked me and just deleted her account or whatever. And what I get initially, without like digging into it too much, I just get a hit of it's what she's going through now, because she kind of got a taste of something that she didn't know was going to be the full effect of it. She was kind of like wanting that quick fix, that like, here, make it stop, and then I can go back to being how exactly I am. But that never happens with people who come to me. And so I get sometimes, not that much, but sometimes there are people that take it negatively because they're not aware of what it is and how deep it goes and how the shadow work within them can absolutely come to the surface. Because what I help with my healings essentially is just to reconnect you in the orientation that's true to you. Mm-hmm. So you have all the parts of you, all the bodies that you occupy, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, the psychological, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When they're all on the same page, all in the same chapter, all in the same book, then clarity comes naturally. And is it comfortable? Oftentimes, hell no, because there's so many of us who still have aspects to us that we're living not so authentically. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily or right about it, because we get by, we learn how to cope. We learn how to make things work, often with the inner child, right? Because as children, we're vulnerable and dependent on the external world to kind of get by. And so we internalize everything because we can't run from things. We can't fight things. We can't freeze from things all the time necessarily. So it is interesting because like Spirit wants to add to that, because even those of us that are looking for those quick things, oftentimes we're initiated without even realizing it. I appreciate these events and this kind of connection, right? Because it is absolutely a part of the whole journey. You can't have a ladder without the first step, the second step, the third step, the fourth step.
Yes, and of course, how would you meet people as well? It's like a very interesting thing, and what I love about the events is that you get to meet people and also witness the different levels that people are on in their journey. And it doesn't matter what physical age they're at. Like I witnessed this kid who he was talking like he was like 30 years old. He knew so much. He had so much, like you could tell he was an old soul. Like you get to experience kind of what is interesting, like from behind the booth, is you kind of get to witness sometimes that spark. Very few people, like you get to see that spark, like the inspired spark click within somebody and know that like you played a role in that, and then you develop that type of deeper soul kinship with somebody because you were both a part. Because when you see their spark in them, you feel a spark in you. So it's a give and take, which is very interesting. It's an interesting experience that you wouldn't get anywhere else. Definitely. You wouldn't get that like on the side of the road. Like, you know,
you might, maybe.
You might. You never know. I definitely think that sometimes people who are meant to find you for help or meant to help you will just appear. That definitely happens.
They do. As you say that, I'm instantly remembering something, something I'll never forget in this life. in this lifetime or other lifetimes either. I was in a really dark place a couple years back at the post office, and I was trying to get a package sent. And not only was I frustrated in that moment, but as soon as I entered the post office, I could feel a very tense, frustrating energy in there also. So I was like, oh, great. Like we're just going to add more tangled mass to more tangled mass. And so I get to my place in line where I am at the counter and I'm trying to work with this person, and we're both very frustrated. And I start to like reflect in the tone of my voice how angry I am and frustrated I am. And I wasn't exactly, being rosy and kind and nice and all that. But in that moment, both myself and that worker were interrupted by this man who just stepped forward, and he was an angel. But the way I only realized that until after the fact, because he came up and without even saying anything, both of us, it was like you could feel the tension in us just melting little by little. And he looked at me and he said, if you write this and you do that, then you can send it off and it'll be a-okay. And I was just like, it's just kind of like that. I've never in my entire life gone so quickly, had a transformation of energy, of emotions so quickly as that man. So it was such a profound experience. And he had ice blue eyes.
Oh,
He had
it's
crystal blue eyes. Yeah, yeah.
that the eyes are a very interesting thing. The elves talk about that a lot. It's like because the eyes are the window of the soul, but a lot of times, like
Mm.
around our eyes, will manifest like markers of our soul, or we'll have markers of our soul like around us, little like beauty mark things. Like I know, I reached a different level in my awakening, and I got like little moles on the inside of my hands that were just like
Oh,
a
that's cute.
manifestation. Like I woke up in the morning and they were there. And it's just like I think that's the same thing with eyes. Like the color sometimes is more vibrant at certain points when your soul is just shining through. And it's definitely an indication of like healer or light work or whatever. Like light worker, indigo is a better term like than light worker, because the eyes is like that's the big thing with indigos. It's the eyes. You notice it in the eyes. You
You
can
say that about the indigos, huh? And you say I'm an indigo. My eyes have changed color like 5 times in my life.
oh
Yeah, not like from pink to brown or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
But I was born
Like
with
different
blue eyes.
phases. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I haven't even looked that closely lately. I should do that today. But I started off with blue eyes, born completely blue-eyed. Then it went totally green, like emerald green, until I was about 7 or 8. And then I started having a little bit of hazel come in. And then in high school, it turned gray. And then in college, like around your age to about just under 30, it was like a multitude of stuff. I had some yellow coming in, like closer to the pupil, and like a mix of stuff that's like splashed through. Have had some orange specks here and there come up sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times Asian people will talk to me, and later when they get to know me, they'll be like, "I love your blue eyes." And I'm like, "I don't have blue eyes." They use that as like a place marker to say your eyes are so starkingly or contrastingly different. They're so starkly different than like a brown-eyed typical Asian person or whatever. I'm interested to know like if your eyes have changed as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was born with blue eyes as well. And then they changed to like hazel. And now they're like brown, but occasionally
Yeah.
they're very brown now, but occasionally when I would like cry, and I used to have like panic attacks a lot when I was younger. So when I would cry, my eyes would almost change to like a very like faded gray color. Like I would only when I would cry and when the tears would go away and the redness in the eye would go away, it would go back to
Wow.
brown. So I have experienced that as well. We don't know. Got my mom, green eyes and brown eyes. That's it. Like we don't know where the blue came from. For me, like it doesn't make sense. But it faded over time. I think it was like the first few months. they were blue, like very, very blue. And then they just turned like golden, which is very interesting because I've like been told in multiple different aspects, like I am a golden soul. That's like the basis of a lot of things that I do. So I have that golden being energy. So they changed from like blue and then turned golden and then brown.
I think I said that when I first met you, didn't I? I feel the blueness from you a lot. I resonate with that quite a bit, or I just see you as that kind of person, but not in the sense that you're only blue. I feel like you've got a wide spectrum of stuff, obviously.
And a lot of it does happen with like I'm deeply when I channel the different elves, I start picking up their colors. So the one that I work with the most, her aura is blue. So she's like the healer, and I
Okay.
love her so much, and so much so that someone saw an image that the channeled image of her and said that we look alike. Like they saw the channeled image of her, this hair, all the energy, and she was very present in my childhood. She was what I remember seeing in my childhood was her, like the head healer of the Elfian realm the most in my childhood, more than any guide, more than any guardian angel. She was always like there, and it's very interesting.
I feel like you've always felt to me like a person who is in this era but from a different era. Like you look like you're from another time, literally.
That's like with past lives, like when I've always since I was a kid been talking about my past lives. My mom will tell me since I was a kid. I've always felt like very like either 1300s or 1800s. Like those are the lifetimes I'll default to. Like my mom was sick when I was growing up, and I had a past life where it was during the bubonic plague, during the plague.
Mm.
And my husband in that lifetime was a doctor. So my mom got sick, and I was talking, and she remembers it so vividly, talking about, and I thought it was so real. And I like kind of can remember it too. Like I'm like, my husband's gonna come, he'll be here soon. He has this and this. And I was like
Oh.
listing medications that would help with her headache. And it was very interesting. I was, I think, 3 at the
Like
time.
the old medicate, like
Old,
old herbs and stuff like
like
that.
like the plague mask, like during that time,
Uh-huh.
that type of like doctor. Like really, it was that transition period between like holistic to almost switching to modern. Like it was that little like period of
Uh-huh.
time, you know. So I was talking about it in like detail and talking about this doctor that's coming and very much. And then I tend to, when I pose in pictures, I'll pose like I'm having a painting taken of me. So that's how it. That's how I'll do. I'll do. My mom
Like,
will.
hold on a sec. I got a selfie.
I gotta exactly. Like I'll do the like I was as if I was a military official or some sort of royalty. I'll like turn and do those sort of portrait things. So I do think sometimes your past lives will start to show through in this lifetime, which I would love to in the future do a full episode dedicated to talking about past lives because I think
Oh,
that's a
heck
big part
yeah.
of it. For me, my awakening started sooner than I had originally planned
Mm,
because there was a
mm.
specific thing I needed to accomplish for like a karmic balance tie in this lifetime that I did 2 years earlier than energetically projected. So there was a projection of when I was supposed to accomplish something. And when you kind of go back and you kind of, I was able to revisit my soul plan, at least up until this point in my life. So I was able to see what I had planned and what I didn't have planned. And there's a specific event that was supposed to be like my triggering awakening event that I happened 2 years earlier. And it wasn't even like a spiritual awakening thing. It was me stepping away and reclaiming my power. It was a very, that started because I finally let my soul step through. That happened when I was 11. It was supposed to happen when I was 13. So
Mm.
I was supposed to, like, I started,
Chop, chop, get to it.
I started the when I was 16, I started the like full deeper awakening and the full healing and all of that. That wasn't supposed to happen until I was 18. So there's the different like I'm ahead of schedule, which is interesting, but some people like your schedule never ends up coming to plan because you're either early or
Right.
late. No one is ever on time for their awakening.
Mm. Some of us have that really rigid concept of time, but we have to realize that time is only juicy in this realm. In other realms, it's not nearly as relevant, or it takes on entirely new dimensions itself. Uh, it's even reflected in the language. When we talk about past lives and reincarnation, a lot of times when I'm channeling, spirit wants me to articulate incarnation so that we know, for example, this happens a lot. When people die, we can go in the past to the next life. That doesn't mean time is going backwards, because time splays out in all different directions in certain realms. So in other lives, we can literally live and go back from a previous time if we're to compare three-dimensionally as a point of reference. And about the timing and everything, anybody listening to this, this is a really great thing to talk about. It's easy, right, to compare yourself to other people. And I could look at you and be like, God, I'm like turning 35 this year. How come I didn't have an awakening happen at that, And then other people, it happens when they're like 65. Other people, they go their entire lives. And then in another life, have that as the reference, have that as the catalyst. And I have been personally it's been a big part of my shadow work with the timing. A lot of people think, as you've had chronic illness and been struggling and had so many success stories, as well as hardships and things that I've lost and grown into as well, and continuing, I'm often hard on myself when I look and I'm like, I should be at this level, but I'm not here. It's like that kid looking at the ride, wanting to go on the roller coaster so bad and be like, oh my God, I have to be this tall to ride. And you're like, why? And you turn it on yourself, and you're kind of like, how dare I'm not 5'2" able to go onto this roller coaster right away. And it's a part of the letting go process and realizing in divinity that time is irrelevant in that matter.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough time for everything and all things and all of us. And that can easily distract the essence of what we're growing into if we're going to put a label on it, a marker on it, a stamp of approval or disapproval,
Mm-hmm.
etc. So it's good you talk about that and bring that up, because we really are all on our own divine timelines. And oftentimes if we're being triggered when we're comparing ourselves to other people, that itself is an incredible moment of potential for the observer of that situation, right? So if you find yourself feeling that way, dive deeper into yourself, look deeper into yourself about where that insecurity is coming from, not just the insecurity itself, how it feels, but follow back to where that emotion beckons from, as pertaining to what you're talking about essentially with the Akashic records, when you're talking about what your soul's plan is, what the blueprint is, why you are experiencing this life and all the flavors of that conscious awareness and the experience that you're having, what it means. Looking back, I'm in my 30s. I don't regret the journey that I've been on. Have I been tested in every single way and aspect and angle you possibly could be when it comes to time and anxiety and disapproval and feeling empty and like I haven't achieved what I need to achieve? Absolutely. All the time. I'm still learning in that regard on how to just accept. It's not the same as being complacent. It's not the same as giving up. It's like straddling that fine line between having no investment in the outcome of what we are aligning with, but at the same time opening up to our devotion of the process itself, not what it will yield, not what it leads to, not what's at the end of the finish line, but the marathon itself as the prize. That's what I think a lot of our distractions are leveraging from us, whether it's intentional or otherwise. There's plenty of incentive on this planet, groups and people that want to get in the way and energies that want to get in the way. They don't always realize it, but they're part of the process. They're part of the learning. They're like a certain teacher that comes in as like an adjunct faculty and is different than the other teachers before and is like really, really negative and wants to destroy and uh, take you back to from the progress that's been made, so to speak, because we have that a lot of us when we get into spirituality and we awaken, we kind of think in terms of our path is going to look like this straight line or this curve on a graph. It's not. Okay.
Oh,
It's spirals. So this is what I say a lot to people that have this kind of as a theme when they come to me. But if you look at and compare this journey to how the sun and the planets circle around the sun, right? But the sun itself circles around a black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So we've got lots of different kinds of rotation happening at once. So if you look at it just from one angle, you'll see, oh, okay, you've got the sun, it's just staying there, and all the planets are circling around it. Nothing special, right? Wrong. The whole structure of that circling around the sun is circling itself. So instead of it looking just like this, it looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when we think that we're going backwards, we're spiraling around, but there's a trajectory to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a direction that it's going towards.
That's a good ending note for this first episode. I think we're doing an episode with you. You're having your own podcast, correct? Yes.
Yes.
So if you like
Skyecast.
yes, if you like hearing us talk, I'll put the link for all of Skye's information below, socials, and also the other podcast because we got more to say. And if you would like a part 2 where we talk about whatever, just comment things like that below and
Awesome.
stay
Thanks for having me.
inspired. Thank you for listening, and may the petals of the flower of inspiration lead you back to us again. Love and light, beautiful souls.